So today what we'll do is we'll subtract integers. Subtract integers. Remember, before we added integers, then we modeled integers. Now we're going to subtract them. Okay, there are two rules that we need to keep in mind when we're subtracting integers. Two rules. Let me zoom in on this for you, so this way you keep it one on one side, one on the other side. This is the first rule, and I just abbreviated. You can abbreviate it as much as you want. Subtracting integers is the same thing as or equals adding its opposite. To subtract an integer, it's the same thing as adding its opposite. Subtracting an integer equals adding its opposite. Okay, here is the other rule to keep in mind. Let me enlarge this for you. So it's a change, two minuses like this, a negative and a minus, or a minus and a negative, or I'm subtracting a negative. Change a double negative. That's a double negative. That's what I like to call it anyways. Change a double negative to a big plus. Change a double negative to a big plus. So when you have subtracting a negative, that's the same thing as adding. So when you see a double negative, just make it a big plus. Okay, let's go ahead and do some examples of this right here. Subtracting integers is the same as adding its opposite. Okay, so let's take a look at 6 minus 2. Well, you know the answer already, 6 minus 2. But what we're going to do is subtracting an integer is the same thing as adding its opposite. So it's the same thing as saying plus negative 2. Subtracting 2 is the same thing as adding a negative 2. They're both the same. And the answer to this is 6 take away 2 is 4, and there's more positive. So when subtracting an integer, think of adding its opposite. I'm just going to put another one right beside it. 2 minus 5. Okay, so subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. Minus positive 5 is the same thing as adding a negative 5. So how much is 2 and negative 5? Well, just subtract. They're different signs, so subtract them. This is negative and that's positive. 5 take away 2 is 3, and there's more negative. Here's the next one, 2 minus 4 plus 5. Okay, subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. So this is the same thing as saying 2 plus negative 4. Subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. And this is plus 5. So let's see, I look at my negatives, I have negative 4. I look at my positive, 5 and 2 is 7. And negative 4 and 7, they're different signs, so I subtract. 7 take away 4 is 3, and there's more positive. Okay, so if you see subtracting, that's the same thing as adding a negative. Okay, again, I'm going to box mine in. Okay, so we have 8 minus 6 minus 4. Now watch what I'm going to do here to make it a little bit easier. Instead of rewriting the problem, this minus 6 is the same thing as negative 6. That's the same thing as negative 6. So I'm just going to put a plus there. 8 and negative 6. I changed a minus to adding a negative. Same thing here. This is the same thing as negative 4. So I'll just put a plus in front of it. So I have 8 and negative 6 and negative 4. Excuse me. Let me zoom in on that. You can see that better. So taking a look at my negatives, I have negative 6 and negative 4. Negative 6 and negative 4 is negative 10. And then I look at my positives. I have positive 8. Okay, minus 6 and negative 6 are the same thing. Minus 4 and negative 4 are the same thing. Negative 6, negative 4 makes negative 10. Then you have 8. Now they're different signs, so you subtract. 10 take away 8 is 2, and there's more negative, so the answer is negative. Okay, so on my paper, I put all the problems on this side. Now we're going to get to some of the double negatives now. Okay, so now we have 4 minus negative 2. Hey, when you see a double negative, this is what I like to call a double negative. This means to subtract a negative. Change it to a big plus. So really what we have is 4, this is a big plus, 2. 4 plus 2. And we all know 4 plus 2 is 6. So when you have a double negative, change it to a big plus. And by the way, if I'm going to follow my rules, subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. Adding its opposite, that means I'd plus 2, plus a positive 2. It would be 4 plus positive 2. Adding its opposite. Negative 7 plus 4 minus negative 3. All right, first of all, we have a double negative. So let's take care of that first. Double negatives. So this is a big plus. So really I have 4 plus 3. Okay, and this is my negative. I have negative 7, positive 4, and a positive 3. So I have negative 7 plus 4 plus 3. That's plus 7. 4 and 3 make 7. That's just 0. Right? Opposites come out to be 0. Okay, here's our next. Hold on a second. This is Blue Jay, over. This is Blue Jay, over.
This is Red Raven, over.
Red Raven, this is Blue Jay. What do you need, over?
I need some staples for the main hall to staple up the bed.
Red Raven, this is Blue Jay. Would you repeat that, over?
I need some staples for the main hall for me to put up the banner.
Roger that. I'll be there in about another 5 minutes. Over and out.
Over and out, too.
Shutting it off now. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so, notice that, huh? Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm busy here. Okay, hang on. Okay, so now, notice that sometimes they already put the negative by itself. So that's fine. But first of all, take care of any double negative. So that's a double negative. And you know what? To make things shorter for us, what we do is we just go ahead, instead of rewriting it, we can just go ahead and make it a big plus. So now that is a positive 8 now. That's a positive 6. That's a negative 1. They already separated it for us. Sometimes it's not separated. So this is your negative, and the rest of them are positive. So I have a negative 1, and I have 6 and 8. Positive 6 and 8 makes positive 14. And, of course, 14 minus 1, right? There's more positive. They're different signs. 14 take away 1 is 13, and there's more positive. Sorry for that interruption. Sometimes my son and I play with walkie-talkies and get carried away here. Okay, this is a complicated one. We have negative 2, double negative 4, double negative 6, minus 3. Okay, our first step is to take care of any double negatives. Take care of the double negatives. Well, here's a double negative, so that's nothing more than a big plus. Here's a double negative. That's a big plus. And that's it. That takes care of the double negatives. Okay, so let's take a look at our negatives. That's a negative 2. It's a positive 4. This is a positive 6. And this right here, that's a negative 3. Just put a plus there. And negative 3. So now let's count up our negatives. I have negative 2 and negative 3. Just add them together. The negatives together, that's negative 5. Or you can think of 5 boys. And then over here, we have positive 4. It's not a negative anymore, it's positive. Positive 4 and positive 6. 6 and 4 makes 10. Positive 10. Okay, so now what I have different signs, so subtract. 10 take away 5 is 5, and there's more positive. So it's positive 5. Okay, now I know we learned this in different order, but I want you to do this first. Changing double negatives to a positive. Do this first. Do it first. And this one, subtracting integers, adding its opposite. Okay, do that second. So do this first, change double negatives to positives, big pluses, and then do the second part.